Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. I'm Melanie Anthony, Communication Advisor at RPI. Thank you for attending our proposed 2023 fees for the Hazardous Waste Program Registry Consultation webinar. This webinar will provide information about the consultation process and the proposed fees, as well as answer your questions. To ask a question, click on the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Type in your question or comment and click send. There's also the upvote feature where you can like another person's question. This will move a question up the queue and prompt us to answer it faster. We will announce when we will be posing for questions during the webinar. If we can't get to your question because of time, or if you have a specific fee question, please reach out to our team at consultations@rpi.ca, who will be happy to help. We will share these slides with you via email. This webinar is also being recorded and will be posted to our website this week. I will now hand it over to Noah Gitterman, General Counsel and Chief of Strategic Initiative, to kick off today's presentation.
Thanks, Melanie. Hi, everyone. I'm Noah. I'm the executive sponsor for the Hazardous Waste Program Registry, and I also help lead the fees consultation process for RPRA. So let's get right into it and go to the first slide. May help to just start with a little bit about who the RPRA is. We're a regulator created through legislation to do a few things. One is that we implement a new resource recovery framework under the RRCEA, regulating businesses that have resource recovery or recycling requirements under a producer responsibility framework. And the other main thing we do is provide digital registry services for certain ministry programs, and in particular for excess soil and of course now hazardous waste. So we're an administrative authority created under legislation. We are not part of government. We don't receive funding from government. So all of our operations are funded through fees that we charge to regulated parties and registrants. And all of our fees are charged out on a cost recovery basis only. So in this session, we're talking about, we'll be presenting on our proposed fees for the Hazardous Waste Registry program. We are also consulting on, at the same time, on fees on our other programs. So that's the RRCEA resource recovery programs. You'll see listed on the slide there, as well as excess soil registry fees. At the same time, we've finalized our 2023 budget and business plan that's been submitted to the minister. It is not yet posted on our website, but it will be soon. Thanks. So part of the reason we're here is because we are, or the reason we're here is because we are implementing the Hazardous Waste Program Registry. We've been mandated to do that by the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks under our legislation. And in particular, we've been mandated to create a digital registry for reporting all information that's required to be reported under Ontario's Hazardous Waste Program. So the kinds of things that you are currently reporting through HWIN will now get reported through RIPRA's registry, registering facilities and waste streams, on-site activities, and manifesting will also now happen electronically through RIPRA's registry. Starting January 1st, there will be no more paper manifests. We're mandated to support registrants in using the registry. So that's making sure all of you get the support that you need to use the new digital service. And as part of that, we're mandated to set and collect fees to recover our costs, both of building the registry and implementing and operating it, and giving you folks the support you will need. So again, our new registry will replace the current HWIN system. There will also be a mobile app component to it. And that registry will be run and supported by RIPRA. The Ministry of Environment will continue to oversee the hazardous waste program, doing all of the compliance and enforcement activities and policy work under the program. RIPRA will be operating the registry to receive all of the information you're required to report. There's a lot more information on our website about the registry and about how to get ready to start using it. We will be opening it up for initial registration starting on November 15th. Next slide, please. Might help to just give a bit more background on how RIPRA recovers its costs. So we have a number of different programs, and we get our fees in really 3 different ways. So for our resource recovery programs under the RRCEA, we charge annual fees to obligated parties who are required to register and report and meet performance obligations under those programs. For the excess soil and hazardous waste registries, we charge transaction fees. So for excess soil, it's a fee that you file per notice. For hazardous waste, we'll get into more detail about what our proposal is, because 2023 will be the first time that RPRA is charging hazardous waste registry fees. We also charge fees under a set of legacy programs under another statute, the WDTA, which involves winding up legacy waste diversion programs as we transfer over to the new producer responsibility framework under the RRCEA. We did engage an outside firm last year to review how we set fees. And that review was completed at the beginning of this year. There is an executive summary from that review that you can read online, I think linked, where we have the information about our about this consultation. And why don't we head over to the next slide, please? So this is just a high-level overview of the process for setting hazardous waste registry fees. It's relatively straightforward. It's very similar to the process we follow for all of our other programs. We are required under our legislation to consult on fees for 45 days, and we're required to post the final fees for 30 days before they come into force. We started the consultation for hazardous waste program registry fees on October 6th. That consultation will end on November 21st. We're doing 2 webinars, so this is the second. There was another one earlier this week. The content for both is the same. Both webinars will also, the recordings will get posted, and the material will be posted on our consultations webpage. Up until November 21, you can send us feedback in writing. The earlier you get it to us, the better. But you do have until November 21st. The emails here, again, this will get posted on our website, so you don't have to write it down. Our board decides fees under our statute. Their decision will get made at the end of November. final fees will get posted to our website and communicated in other ways before or on December 1st. And again, there's more information on our webpage. There's kind of at a high level, 4 main steps to the process for setting fees. We're guided by our general fee setting policy, which is on our website. The starting point is our annual budget. We prepare a budget annually and we also prepare a business plan every year that's required by our statute and required to be submitted to the minister every year. Again, that has been submitted to the minister already. It will get posted soon. Once it is published on our website, you will get notice of that. We then use a cost allocation methodology that takes our overall budget and sets individual program budgets for each program. After that, after we have a program budget, we develop a fee model that essentially determines sort of who is paying and how within each program. And once we have the fee model determined, we use essentially volume estimates, depending on the program. Could be the number of fee payers, the amount of material getting supplied, or the amount of waste getting generated, or a combination of those 3 to generate a fee rate, to take the budget, run it through the model, and generate a fee rate that registrants will pay. Next slide, please. So now we're going to get into starting with our high-level budget and our hazardous waste program allocation. So our budget is focused on 4 strategic priorities. 3 of the 4 are relevant to the hazardous waste program, providing registrants with accessible and easy to use registry services. All of our programs rely on an electronic registry, and they're all supported using the same IT support and frontline call and email support, providing on the province, both the public and the ministry, with reliable and useful resource recovery and waste information. So as part of all of our programs, including hazardous waste, we are expected to make some information from the registry available to the public and to the ministry. And of course, making sure we're accountable, transparent to our stakeholders, and that we are funding ourselves in a way that we can be sustainable over time. So we're providing the right level of support, using the right number of resources, so all of you folks are getting the help you need to use our systems properly, and that you can accomplish your regulatory obligations in as efficient way as you can. Next slide, please. So the budget for 2023 includes new investments in frontline services and registry support. A lot of that is because of the new hazardous waste program that we will be fully operational for the first time on January, starting really later this year. So we have more frontline call and email support staff, more investment in IT support to make sure the system is secure and reliable, and that the portals are as usable as they can be. There will be a bit more detail about our budget than what you'll see in this presentation in our business plan. And again, you'll get information, or you'll get notice when that business plan gets posted. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of our overall budget and our cost recovery targets for each set of programs we run. Our CEA resource recovery programs, our Environmental Protection Act registry services, so excess soil and hazardous waste, and our legacy waste diversion programs you could see there. Next slide, please. This is just showing a year-over-year breakdown. The year-over-year is less relevant to maybe to folks in the hazardous waste program, because 2023 is the first year we will be charging fees. But this is a picture, it's the same numbers from the previous slide, just showing year over year, and our total cost recovery target at the bottom. Next slide, please. So we do, once we have our overall budget, like I mentioned, we have a cost allocation methodology that breaks it down into individual program budgets. Again, on the slide here, 4 main components to that methodology. The first one is that direct costs are assigned to each program. Often in the program, one of the biggest direct costs is the cost for paying off the cost of building the electronic registry portal for that program. So all of our portals are capitalized and paid off over a 10-year period. So in each year, there will be an amortization amount plus interest for that program's registry portal. There are some registry foundational costs that are common to all programs. We try to be as efficient as possible, reusing components in our registry for each of the programs as much as we can. And so there's a contribution to that foundational registry component. Sometimes there are also some direct costs in addition to the registry costs related to professional fees or specific IT or registry related expenses that are specific to that program and that no other program would need. And the next component is our indirect and shared costs. So we operate on a shared service delivery model. So we don't have people at RIPRA set up. So so all of our programs are sharing the same services. And so we have a model to make sure that costs are reasonably allocated to the different programs. Some are allocated equally across programs, indirect costs like general admin and that kind of thing. Costs that depend on sort of the volume of activity are allocated using cost drivers. Like, for example, the number of registrants in the program, because that will drive activity in the registry and the support needed to keep it running smoothly. There are contributions to an operating reserve that we have. That's not a surplus. That's really that's a reserve that we use throughout the year to manage our cash flow. And each program has a proportionate share that they contribute to that reserve. And then finally, there are some legacy RIPRA startup costs that are allocated out to each of the programs. Next slide, please. So here is our a breakdown of program budgets for each of our programs. The Has Waste budget is at the bottom. Part of that budget includes the recovery of operating costs that were allocated to hazardous waste in 2021 and 2022 while we were working to build the registry. And those, what we call deferred costs, from 2021 and 2022 will get recovered over a 3-year period. And so some of those costs are built into the 2023 budget, and we'll get, and that leads to the total that you see on the screen there. Next slide, please. The costs, again, at a high level, the costs we're recovering for the hazardous waste program cover a number of activities that RIPRA is doing. Again, we don't receive any government funding. There aren't any grants, there aren't any startup funds to get things going. Everything we do is recovered through fees we charge to our registrants. For the hazardous waste program, as I mentioned, our fees are going to recover the cost of developing the registry itself. Again, that's amortized over a 10-year period, plus interest. Like I mentioned, recovery of the startup operating costs from 2021 and 2022, in addition to the capital registry costs. There are some operating costs because we had a team at RIPRA over the past almost 2 years working on delivering this new registry, but we have not been charging fees or receiving any funding for the program in 2021 and 2022. So those costs get charged out over a 3-year period starting in 2023. And then, of course, all of our registry implementation costs, which among other things include, our registry support officers, our call center costs, our IT support costs, for all of the phone and email support we need to do for registrants, and all the transactions that will need to run through the system, supporting both the registry portal, the mobile app, public access to the registry, plus a ministry portal so they can get the information they need, training and guidance, supporting the API we've developed to assist high volume registrants. And I already mentioned a separate portal for the ministry to be able to access and input information that is needed to help make the program run. Next slide, please. So here's, again, another breakdown of the hazardous waste budget showing the registry amortization amount, our estimate of what interest payments will be for 2023 on that amount, the allocated direct, indirect, and shared costs. And again, that last line, number 4, are deferred operating costs from 2021 and 2022. So again, we had a team at RIPRA working on developing and launching this program over the past 2 years, but we were not collecting fees. So those costs need to be recovered starting in 2023. So we're proposing to recover those over a 3-year period. And so there's a portion now in the budget for 2023. And then you see the total at the bottom. Next slide, please. So I think we're at questions. Maybe before we get into questions, I should point out that because we're gonna, the next couple slides after questions get into the actual fee rate we're proposing. So the fees you're paying to HWIN now, those are going away. The fees you're paying to the government through HWIN, those are all going away. And so starting in 2023, there will be no more fees through HWIN, but you will have fees to RIPRA. The RIPRA fees that we're proposing are lower than the HWIN, the current HWIN fees. So HWIN right now has for generators has a $50 registration fee. That's annual, a $5 manifest fee, and a $30 tonnage fee. So what's being proposed for 2023, the annual registration fee is gone. So the $50 registration fee is gone. The manifest fee, the $5 manifest fee, will stay the same. That's the proposal. But the tonnage fee is going down. So the tonnage fee we're proposing for 2023 is $27.50. So I just wanted to clarify that up front. We probably should have had maybe, and if we do this again, we'll have a little visual showing it. But if you're comparing the HWIN fees to the proposed RIPR fees, the RIPR fees are lower than what you're required to pay through HWIN. Again, that, or just to emphasize, that does not include whatever you're paying to your service providers. So your service providers will be charging you for the work they do, and that is not covered in the fees we're talking about today. So why don't we see if there are any questions?
Yes, Noah, we can take the questions right now. I'll just remind folks on like how to ask a question. So to ask a question, click on the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, type in your question or comment and click send. There's also a vote feature where you can like another person's question. This will move the question up the queue and prompt us to answer it. So let's get into the question, but I think you already answered that as part. Noah, if an organization has multiple company accounts, does each company account need to pay a registration fee? If yes, is it fixed yearly fee, or is it manifest based as HWIN?
So it's not a fixed yearly fee, it's a manifest fee and a tonnage fee. If the RIPRA registry is set up differently from HWIN in terms of how user accounts work. So in HWIN, you have an account for every generating facility. In the new registry, each organization or company has an account, and all of the generating facilities related to that company will be under that account. And the invoice will include all of the activity for that company in one invoice. We will be invoicing on a monthly basis, so it won't be the sort of yearly. Some of you in HWIN may be doing kind of a yearly prepaid model. That is not the RIPRA model. We'll talk about this a bit more in the next couple of slides, but we will be invoicing on a monthly basis.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions about the HWIN account. So what will happen to people account balance on HWIN when they still have money in it?
Yeah, so that your HWIN account, let me start off by saying that when you register in the RIPRA registry, a lot of your HWIN information, registration information, facility information, waste stream information will get migrated over to the new registry, so you won't have to input that again. Your financial information will not get migrated over. So if you do have an account balance left over in HWIN, you will need to settle that with the ministry. The ministry will be communicating. If you haven't received a communication already from the ministry about that, you will. I think they're encouraging everyone to do what they can to kind of manage that now. So there isn't a lot left over to return at the end of the year.
Okay. The next question is a sort of a summary for the price of the manifest. So Maybe you can clarify that and then we can move to the next slides. So the question is, just to be clear, the manifest fee, $5 paid for a physical manifest covered the printing of the manifest until 2022 and the processing of the manifest. Now that we are online, we still need to pay $5 per manifest created. Why? What is this covering now?
So the $5 manifest fee is covering the costs of running the electronic manifesting program. So all of the same manifest information will get recorded. It's just getting recorded in our system electronically rather than on paper. And so the cost will be going to recovering the cost for developing and implementing the new e-manifest solution. And maybe, Melanie, if most of the questions now are kind of about more detailed question about what fees are and how they work, maybe I should just do, because I think it's just a couple of slides, get through those. And
do
then,
the remaining slides and then we'll get back to the question.
Great. Okay, so let's dive right in. So again, if you're thinking back to sort of the steps in the fee setting process, we talked about the budget, the overall high level budget, the allocations to the different programs, and then the fee model. So the fee model we're proposing here, the starting point is a regulation, actually a new regulation under the RRCEA, that's RIPRA's governing legislation. That regulation preserves all of the fee exemptions that currently exist for wastes and sources of waste under the HWIN program. So all existing fee exemptions will be maintained in 2023. So if you're getting the benefit of an exemption now, either a type of waste or a source of waste, that exemption will remain. Like the current program, all fees will be invoiced to the generator. If you are delegating to a service provider and are doing what we call full delegation, so the service provider is doing all of the reporting, including initial registration for you on the registry, then your delegate will get the invoice because they're sort of standing in the place of the generator in our at least in our registry. Like the current HWIN program, again, we're proposing a manifest fee for each manifest and a tonnage fee. The tonnage fee applies to the waste on the manifest and also to waste that is disposed on site. So again, that's consistent with the current HWIN program. And again, just emphasizing that fee exemptions, either for the manifest fee or the tonnage fee, still apply. And unlike the HWIN program, there will be no more annual registration fee. The process for invoicing will be different. We are invoicing monthly. Each month with the invoice will include fees for the activity for the previous month. So if there has been no activity, you won't get an invoice. And that applies to manifesting activity. For on-site disposal, the fee will get invoiced at the time the report is completed. So when that on-site disposal report is closed out at the appropriate time, it will get invoiced. And again, this approach is aligned with our fee setting principles, and you can read more about that in our policy and on the slide here. Next slide, please. In order to take that fee model, right, a manifest fee and a tonnage fee, and determine a fee rate, we need to make some estimates about the amount of activity that we will see in the system for 2023. We're proposing to maintain the manifest fee, like I already discussed, at $5 per manifest, the same rate under the current program. I should note, because this question came up in the other session, current manifests, when you're using the paper manifest, there's a limit to the number of waste streams you can include on the manifest. In the electronic version, there is no limit to the number of waste streams you can include on the manifest. In order to then set the tonnage rate, we need to have an estimate about the number of manifests we think we're going to see and the amount of tonnage we think we're going to see in 2023, with appropriate contingency there, given the variability year over year in activity. So you can see on the slide here, we're assuming for the purposes of setting rates for 2023, 250,000 manifests subject to fees and 230,000 tons of waste subject to fees. And in both of those cases, we're using historic data. We're excluding 2020, which when shipments were abnormally low due to the pandemic. In particular with tonnage, we're using a conservative estimate that's in the lower range of total tonnage, just to make sure that we are recovering enough costs during the year to keep the program running. If rates are set too low, the program will run a deficit, and that means rates in future years will need to increase to recover that amount. And of course, rates needs to be set high enough so our revenue contingencies are not depleted during the year, and program operations are not interrupted before we get to fee setting for 2024. Either surpluses or deficits during the year get incorporated into future fee rates. So again, it's a full cost recovery basis. So if there is a surplus, so if the amount we recover exceeds the amount we actually spent on the program in 2023, that surplus will get wrapped up into future fee rates. If our estimates are off in terms of volume, that gets trued up within the program in future years. Next slide, please. So here's just the final rates that we're proposing. Again, $5 per manifest, $27.50 per ton. And once again, all of the fee exemptions under the subject that you're getting now in the H1 program will apply to these fees and will apply in 2023. And those are automatically, those exemptions are built into the registry we've built. In some cases, some of the exemptions depend on an application, so you need to apply to the ministry. If you have a current exemption, that gets transferred over from H1. If you're applying for a new exemption, there is a process in the registry to get that done. Here's just some information again about feedback. We really appreciate feedback. The feedback we get from stakeholders in all of our programs gets summarized and wrapped up in a report to our board, which is information that they use when setting final fees. And that report also gets posted publicly on our website. So you will see a summary of feedback and our response to it on our website once fees are posted. And that is an input into our board's decision-making on fees. So we do appreciate feedback. And again, we also encourage you to get that feedback to us as early as possible. And if you can, avoid waiting till the last day to get it to us. And now we're ready for questions.
Yes, we are. So we'll take the next questions. Noah, the next question is, will you be providing a demo of the new system today?
I am not, but it's a great question. And I may be going to look to my colleagues in the background. There may be some demo videos already on our website. And so maybe we can link to those for everyone. There will also be, we have had some sessions showing demos already. There may be, we will be hosting additional sessions focused on training and guidance and getting people up to speed. So make sure you're on our mailing list for that. Again, you can get on our lists by going to our website, and you will get the demos you need.
I know it's Jess from our PRA. I'll just quickly jump in. I'll post a link in to this person's response and to the kind of training and education materials we have on the website so far, but there will be more to come. By November, we'll be posting a more robust training material. So stay tuned for that, like Noah said. But for now, I'll point you in the direction of what we have.
Great, thanks, Jess.
So the next question is, will the invoice identify the site that the manifest or tonnage fee is for?
I believe the answer is yes. So I don't have offhand a template for the invoice, but I believe the answer is yes. It'll identify what site the fee relates to. That information will also be available in the registry itself. So you will always be able to go into the registry and see all of the activity for a site and what's been manifested and what's been charged.
The next question is, can generator account fees be delegated to the contractor in the event of a partial delegation agreement in place, or would the fees be applied to the generator's account only?
So that the fees go to the entity that set up the generator's account. That's how our system is set up, and that's how RIPRA ensures that we have an entity, a registered entity that we can invoice. So if you're free as a generator to work out whatever arrangements you can with your service provider related to payment. If you do want or expect your service provider to handle payment of RIPRA fees for you, I think we would recommend doing full delegation if you can, and working out, if you want access to your account, working out with your service provider a way to access your account. If you're doing partial delegation, then whoever's assuming you've set up your account and then have delegated to a service provider, you will get the invoice. Your service provider may be able to get access to that invoice, or you can send it to them, but it will be linked to the entity that's initially set up the generator account.
The next question is about municipalities. So municipalities running hazardous waste events have not historically had HWIN fees. Will this continue to be the case with the RPI registry?
Yes, it will continue. So the same exemption that applies to MHSW events now will apply in 2023.
The next question is, can we set up separate costs or invoice per facility within an organization?
So invoicing won't be facility by facility, but I believe our invoices will have some breakdown showing how much each facility is owed. We have had this suggestion, I think, from other, I think in the last session, we heard this comment or this feedback. So it's a helpful suggestion, and we will take it back and consider whether it's something we can accommodate.
Next question is for clarification, essentially one manifest per shipment. Paper manifests only have 4 line items. With the electronic manifest, we technically could have unlimited line items.
I guess technically that's true, but it's still, yes, it's still one manifest per shipment. So in the past, if you had run out of lines and needed another manifest for the same shipment because you ran out of lines, now that won't be an issue because we're not using paper. So it all just fits on one manifest in the system.
Another question is, if we have extra blank manifests, are we still going to be able to use them come 2023, or are they to be scrapped?
No, they get scrapped. And in fact, I think the regulatory amendments that come into force on January 1 require essentially that they get destroyed.
The next question is, will ECA permitted facilities have to pay the tonnage fee?
So the best way I can answer that question is maybe just to repeat what I've said before. So if you're the beneficiary of an exemption now under HWIN, that exemption will be maintained in 2023. And just like in HWIN, the fees go to the generator. So it's the generator that gets invoiced. But if you're a generator that's getting where you're either your waste and your site is exempted, that will be maintained.
Okay. The next question is, after data is transferred to RPRA, we would still be able to use our HWIN accounts? If no, what will happen to them?
That's a good question. So you will be getting more information from the ministry about that. I think there is a period of time at the beginning of 2023 where you will still be able to access your HWIN account and kind of close out, for example, outstanding balance you may have there. At some point, though, HWIN is being decommissioned. So the data will continue to be stored. But at some point in 2023, there will be no more user access to HWIN because it's unnecessary. All of your reporting will be happening starting January 1st through the RIPRA registry. But you will get more information from the ministry about the timeline for that.
Thank you. The next question is, how much did the tonnage fee decrease?
So the tonnage fee right now is $30 a ton. Our proposal is $27.50 a ton.
Thank you. The next question is, will a tonnage fee be applied to leachate loads?
Again, it would probably be a bad idea for me to answer that detailed question other than by saying if it's exempted under HWIN, under the HWIN program now, it will be exempt in 2023. And that's pursuant to the subject waste regulation under the RRCA. So that regulation basically requires RIPRA to maintain fee exemptions. It really clarifies the fee exemptions, the existing fee exemptions under HWIN, and forces RIPRA to abide by them.
The next question is, what is the due period after receiving the invoice assuming the prepaid option is not available?
So I believe invoices are, payment is due on receipt of the invoice. I think our typical approach is to apply late fees starting 30 days after the invoice is received. Maybe we can help clarify that. Maybe I can look to my colleagues to clarify the payment terms, but I believe it's due on receipt, and then we have we do start applying late fees if the invoice isn't paid.
Thank you. The next question is, how will this affect cross-border shipments? Will American counterparts be able to access the e-manifest?
Yes, so anyone can use the registry. If they're participating in paper manifests now, they will be able to use the electronic manifest in the registry. They may need accounts in our registry, depending on what role they're playing. If you're dealing with out of province generators or out of province or out of country receivers, and they won't be registered in the registry, then talk to us. We will have more information for you about how to make sure those out of jurisdiction generators or receivers get reflected in the new system.
Next question is, if we can't find our username or password for HWIN and the email used is no longer available, how
That's a good question.
access
Yeah,
to our PRA?
that's a good question. I think so you would still be able to just set up a new account, but your HWIN information wouldn't get migrated over. So you would just have to re-enter it all. So that's one option. If you want the information migrated over, I think the best thing to do is really to reach out to registry support at RIPRA. Maybe there's something either us or the ministry can do to help you find that information.
Thank you. Another question is, we have customers in another province where they need to send a copy of a manifest to their provincial regulatory authority. How will they be able to do this in the future?
The system we've developed will still allow you to print out a copy of the manifest if you need to use it for your own purposes or to meet another jurisdiction's regulatory requirements. So you won't be mailing that anymore to Ontario's Ministry of the Environment, but you will be able to print out a copy of the manifest, like a PDF of the manifest, essentially. So you could save it and email it or print it out. That will be available.
Okay. The next question is, how will we know when waste has been picked up when we no longer will receive a copy of the original paper manifest?
So if whatever role you're playing in the system, so whether you're a generator, carrier, receiver, they will all have accounts in the system, and you will have access, essentially real-time access to the status of that shipment as it goes through the process. So all you need to do is log into the registry or through the mobile app, and you'll see where in the process that shipment is.
Thank you. Another question is, if we fully delegate, what responsibility the owner has?
So that under the regulation, the generator still is responsible for fulfilling the legal requirements under the hazardous waste regulation, still is legally responsible for making sure the right information gets reported. But the amended regulation clarifies that the reporting obligation can get delegated to a service provider. So if you're fully delegated, that means your service provider will do all of the reporting for you in the registry. You will not, as a generator, interact with the registry at all. You still, under the reg, will have certain legal obligations, and will still be ultimately responsible for the information that is being submitted on your behalf.
The next question is, do we have to re-register our waste? It's a question related to the parts to be form.
Right. So the most of your waste stream information in HWIN will get migrated over to the new system when you set up your facility. There's some good information on our website about exactly what information is getting migrated and how that process will work. Essentially, you will need, like one of the other questions I was sort of hinting at, you will need your HWIN email and one of the usernames associated with your HWIN account in order to get that information transferred over. But there is material on our website that explains it in detail. And there are some, if you haven't seen them, we have run a few sessions for generators. And there were a couple in September, and there are recordings of those sessions and the presentation deck from those sessions on our website. And those sessions have a lot of information about the account setup process and how data gets migrated from HWIN.
Thank you. The next question is, how will discrepancies be corrected with the new electronic system?
That's a good question. I think the best way I can answer that, I think, is by saying it depends on the discrepancy. But the system accommodates a corrections process for manifests. So if there are corrections being made really at any point in the shipment process, there is a process within the system for getting those accepted. So making sure that if things are changed, that the right sign-offs are completed before the manifest can be considered complete.
Next question is, what do we do in an emergency situation if we have to call SAC in the middle of the night for a spill? Do we do a manifest the next business day? Because generally there's no one to come to the manifest at that time.
So I think the best way I can answer that is by saying that the process for emergency spills will essentially be the same as it is today. So you'll still be calling the same folks in the ministry. You'll get an emergency generator number. The only difference is that rather than filling out all that information on a piece of paper, you will do it in the registry. But in terms of the timing and when you need to do that and how that gets worked out, those requirements are not changing.
The next question is, what is the process to set up a new generator number next year or to cancel our generator number?
So what you will need to do as a generator is, if you're not doing full delegation, is set up an account in our registry, and you will be able to import or sort of automatically migrate all of your HWIN information. So if you're talking about a current generating facility, you have registered in HWIN, and current waste streams you have registered in HWIN, those will get transferred over to the new registry. and given a new generator number. So you don't have to worry about that. If you've got new waste being generated or a new facility generating waste, there's a straightforward process in the registry for getting that done. Again, once your account is set up, you can also do partial delegation of service providers who can help register waste streams for you if you don't, as a generator, don't want to do it yourself.
Next question is, our service provider has informed us that it will not be offering full service delegation.
So
how can we get a list of providers who are willing to be an authorized generator delegate?
Yeah, RIPRA is not providing a list of entities who are willing to be authorized generator delegates. The best we can suggest is that you continue to talk to your service provider, or look for other service providers to call to see what they're willing to offer.
Thank you. The next question is, but if the manifest is needed for transport in an emergency situation, so that they know how to make this happen for hauling in the middle of the night.
Yeah. So, this
is a two-part question. So the first part is, what if a driver doesn't have self-service during transport and gets pulled over? What do we provide when we are pulled over, but then they need the manifest for transport in an emergency situation?
Right. So the registry will be available at all times for emergency and non-emergency situations to input the relevant manifest information. If there isn't self-service, we will be providing training and guidance for folks about what to do if there are situations when a manifest can't get created at any point in the process because there is no access to self-service. So stay tuned for more information on our website about what that process will look like. I think in most cases, in the typical case, you will be able to use our registry at any point to do the manifesting you need in emergency situations and in the regular course of business.
Thank you. The next question is, who pays the $5 manifest fee? The customer or the waste disposal provider?
So that fee will get invoiced like the tonnage fee to the entity that set up the generator's account. So whether that's the generator itself or a service provider, if full delegation is used.
Next question is, will there be public reporting transparency on the manifest or waste shipment?
Yes. So that I guess the best way to answer that is that the same types of information that's made public through HWIN now will get made public through the registry. Maybe not in exactly the same way, but the same information will be made available through the new registry to the public.
Thank you. Another question is, will the manifest and tonnage fees remain unchanged in the coming years?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the RIPRA's goal is to be able to set fees for more than a year in order to be able to give more sort of stability and predictability to our registrants. Because this is a new program for us, and the amount of activity that will get pushed through the system and the amount of support needed to make sure that goes smoothly is unknown. We are only setting a fee for 1 year right now. So at the end, so at this time in 2023, we will be looking at the 2024 fee. So at least for this year and 2024, there will be a new fee each year. I can't tell you whether it'll be the same fee or not. I think that depends to a certain extent on how good our estimates are, again, about the level of activity in the system and the amount of support needed to make sure it's running smoothly. But we do hope to get to a point where we can set fees on a more predictable basis for multiple years. We're not there yet.
Thank you. So the next question is, can we allow multiple delegations from the owner to more, to 2 or more service providers?
Yes.
And the next question is, can a manifest has more than one hazardous waste?
I just want to be, I think the best way for me to answer that question is whatever rules apply to manifest now, in terms of what content you can put on them. The same rules apply in 2023, except there isn't a 4-line limit.
Next question is there a template for written delegation agreement available?
We do not have a template. The ministry is currently consulting on their updated generator registration manual. That's the updated version of the old HWIN manual. There are requirements in there for the kinds of things that a written delegation agreement needs to have. They're relatively straightforward. They're the kinds of things you would expect it to have, but they are listed out in the proposed new manual. So I encourage you, and that's on the environmental registry. It's currently being consulted on. So I encourage you to look at that as an example of what you might want in your written delegation agreement, but we are not providing a template for that. That's something for you to work out with your service provider.
Thank you. The next question is, has RPOA consulted with the MTO about the transport requirements when it comes to waste in transit?
So we have consulted with our federal counterparts at Transport Canada to help make sure that our version of the manifest will meet the TDG requirements in most cases. So if those are the requirements you're asking about, we have been coordinating with some folks at Transport Canada to try to make our version of the manifest as compliant as we can with TDG. If there's other requirements you're thinking of, maybe that's worth an email into RIPRA, and we can try to get you a more detailed answer.
Thank you. The next question is, do we still have to send a copy of the manifest to the ministry after the shipment is picked up?
No. So everything gets recorded in the registry now, nothing on, starting January 1st, nothing on paper. So nothing gets sent to the ministry, and you also don't need to keep any paper records because all the information should be in your account on the registry.
Thank you. The next question is, are generators IDs going to be the same, or will they change?
That's a good question. So maybe I'm going to look to my colleagues. I don't know the answer offhand. So you will use your your H1 generator ID to get your information migrated over. I actually don't know offhand whether you get assigned a new ID or that generator ID sort of remains your ID. The system kind of does it for you. And when you're creating new manifests, there are easy ways to sort of search and identify the generators you want, or if you're just in your facility account, you can create a manifest and the ID, the relevant generator ID gets automatically inputted. So in the new system, you may not really need to think deliberately about generator IDs as much like you do with the paper version. But we can try to get a specific answer to that, maybe follow up after the session.
Thank you. The next question is, does everything get automatically transferred? And is there anything we need to do to migrate the information to RPOA?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes and yes. So the information will get automatically transferred, but you need to identify it for us. So I think earlier I said you needed an email address and username. I think what you need is your HWIN generator ID and one of the usernames associated with that HWIN account. Then that information will get automatically incorporated into your new RIPRA registry account. The details about exactly what facility and waste stream information is migrated over is on our website. So again, there's some FAQs about it, but there are also a couple of sessions like this one, but that are focused specifically on account setup and migration. And you can look at those or read the presentation decks from those sessions.
Thank you. The next question is, so does the full delegate need to provide access to the new database so that we have copies of the manifest?
Yeah, so if you are doing full delegation, you'll likely want to work out with your service provider some way to access the information in the account if you need it. So the ministry also has full access to that information on its end, because everything is stored in one place now in the RIPRA's registry. But you will likely want to work out some way with your service provider. So if you need to, you can get access to the information in that account. Either they can provide it to you from the registry, or maybe there's another way for them to set you up as a user so you can see what's in the account.
And Noah, we have a clarification from our colleague that the generator number will be the same that what was used in HWIN.
Oh, that's a wait, could you repeat that again, Melanie?
The same generator number ID will be used in the
it will be.
UP
Okay, great, thank you.
The next question is, will RPOA or Transport Canada be publishing a Q&A or another document to indicate the level of alignment or ability to use one manifest for both purposes?
Thanks for that suggestion. I don't know if we're planning to do that, but that is something we can consider. So I'll take that back, and we can talk about it with the team. Thanks for that suggestion.
The next question is, so does the full delegate need to provide access to the new database so that we have full copies of the manifest?
So I think either we answered this one or it's a similar question.
I think we answered this one.
So we might have answered it. I mean, the short answer is no, they don't have to. There may be a reason why you want to or need to have access to the account, and you can easily work that out with your service provider.
The next question is, if fully delegated to a service provider, how does a generator get documentation to show the due diligence if they don't have access in the registry? Is the carrier meant to PDF it to the generator?
That's a similar question to the one we just answered. In short, it's up to you to work that out with your service provider. There's no specific obligations. You can work out with them a way to give you information from the registry if you need it. There may be other ways for you to get access to the account as a user if you want to go in and check on what your service provider is doing.
The next question is, in HWIN account, we have different users registered under the same account. Will these users be transferred to the new account, or will we need to register them again? Will there be an option to add new users or disable the existing ones?
No, users will not be transferred. So when you set up your new account, new Ripper account, you will need to add the users for that account.
Just to clarify, so the account will get transferred, but the users have to be added again, right?
Yeah.
So the next question is, where is the server located for the registry? Will the information data be stored within Canada, or will it be stored internationally?
So our registry is built on a Salesforce system. So Salesforce is a service is a cloud-based service. The databases that we use for the RIPRA registries, our RIPRA Salesforce registries, are located in Canada.
So the next question is, will there still be a public facing portion of the HWP? So we can look to see if a generator that is new to the provider can see if they already have a profile like we can now.
Yes, the short answer is yes. Just like now, you will be able to do lookups to see certain generator information and waste stream information. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is, and you may have answered this, says the person, will invoicing be streamlined according to each generator? So if I'm the delegate, can facilities within an organization set up a different invoicing system?
So the invoices will go to the account holder. So if there are multiple facilities under the account, there's just one invoice for all of the facilities. I believe our invoices, though, will break down the information by facility. So maybe that's something, because I know this question has come up a couple of times, maybe that's something we can double check and get back to you folks on. But I believe our invoices will break down the fees by facility.
The next question is, in the emergency situation, the number is generator number, but for our ARP, does the company account needs to set up?
So that in an emergency situation, you will still get an emergency generator number from the ministry, when you will need to set up as a generator in the registry in order to create your manifest. But there's a straightforward process for doing that. So essentially, you'll check a box that it's an emergency situation, and you'll be able to input the emergency generator number you got from the ministry, and then proceed to start entering the waste information and then doing the manifest.
Okay. The next
And I
question.
should say, we will have training and guidance materials, I believe specifically about how emergency situations will get handled in the new system. But at a high level, it's not much different than how it will work today, except you'll be going into the registry to do it. If you don't have an account in the registry yet, you will need to set one up.
The next question is, will RPOA have account representative to deal directly with generators? For example, if they're not using delegates for things like account setup, since RPOA will become the new vendor for these companies.
Right. So the short answer is yes. Technically, we're not a vendor. We're providing this service under a legislative mandate from a directive from the Ministry of the Environment. But as part of that mandate, we are committed to providing the right level of support to make sure it works smoothly, both for you and for the ministry. And we will have registry support officers on call and available by email to help starting November 15th, when we open up for account registration, and obviously on Jan 1st, when manifesting starts through the system.
Okay. This is the last question. The last two questions. Is the delegation intended to be the hazardous waste vendor or a third party?
That's up to you. So you can delegate to any service provider. In most cases, that might be one of the entities that's helping you either ship or receive the waste, but it does not have to be. And I should probably mention, again, this is covered in our other sessions. You do not have to be a delegate in order to manifest for a generator. So if you're set up as a carrier or a receiver in the system, you will be able to create manifest for any generator. You don't have to be delegated in order to create a manifest, but you do need to be a delegate, or you do need, if you're a generator, you do need to delegate if you want assistance registering, editing facility information or waste stream, or the detailed waste stream information in the system. Another thing that delegation allows you to do is it also allows the service provider to sign the manifest on your behalf.
I don't know if this was like a continuity of a question before, but it says to clarify, RPOA will need to be set up as vendor in order for invoices to be paid. Yes. Yeah.
That makes sense to us. Yeah, if that's what's required for your internal business process, that makes sense to us. And our registry support folks are familiar with helping our registrants both figure out how to get their account set up and how to manage payments when they receive invoices. So payments are also done through the registry, and there are a number of options for paying.
The next question is, in regards to AP and reconciling account activity, all generators in the case here, it's municipality, accounts be notified by email with a copy of a manifest with signature, so that they are able to provide that to allow payment processing.
So I think the best way for me to answer that is that you will be able to go into the registry and see all the activity that's related to each of your facilities. including all the manifests and sort of where they are in the process. We do not, I do not think the registry is set up to notify generators each time, with an email, each time a manifest is complete. I think we've heard that that could be sort of a burdensome email volume for some or many entities. But at any time you can log into the system and see what level of activity you have.
So we'll take this last question and then take the poll. So in the new system, will generators be responsible to create manifests, or the service providers will still be able to do it for the generators?
So the service providers will be able to do it for the generator. So any carrier or receiver will be able to create a manifest in the system on behalf of, to start a manifest in the system for a generator to sign.
Thank you, Noah. So we'll just take a little break and launch our poll so that we can improve our webinars. So please take a few minutes to fill out these 4 questions. I think we can now end the poll and share the results. And we can get back to questions. So the next question is, we are a holder for a generator. Will we need to also set up an account with RPOA, or will this be done by the generator through the account?
If you are a carrier that will be on a manifest, you need to set up your own account in the system. Everyone involved with manifesting will need an account: the generator, the carrier, and the receiver. For carriers, if you have there's an easy process for account setup. Some of your ECA information that the ministry has will also, I believe, get migrated over as part of that process if you have your ECA numbers. There's more information on our website about how to set up an account as a carrier or receiver. But yes, you will need an account in our system.
This is the last question, Noah, but I believe you already answered, is where can we find a list of service delegates?
We do not provide a list of service provider delegates. So my best suggestion is to talk to your current service provider or maybe talk to peer organizations and find out who they're using and what some of the options are.
There are 2 more questions. So to clarify on an earlier question, any entity can start a manifest, not just a generator. So it could be a generator, carrier, or receiver.
Correct. Anyone in those 3 roles can start a manifest.
And the next question is, will service providers have the capability to pre-fill the electronic forms as they do now for the hard copy forms?
So that's a good question. You will be able to create draft manifests in advance. And you also have the ability to copy manifests. So if you have shipments that are sort of the same shipment running frequently, you can easily copy manifests to create new ones, and you can set up draft manifests so they're ready to go. If you do have a high volume or are handling a high volume of manifests, we do have an option to integrate with the registry through an API. So that involves a technical process at the service provider's end to have their systems link up directly with our registry. If you would like more information about that, shoot us an email and we can provide it. That would really be for folks, I think that really be for folks that have a high volume of manifests. But otherwise the system is set up to easily create draft manifests and associate a facility's waste streams with those manifests.
So we are coming to the end of the webinar. Thank you everyone for attending. So as mentioned, this webinar is being recorded, so we will share it on our website with the slide decks. Do you have any closing remarks, Noah?
No, I don't. I should actually clarify. So there's a question earlier about where our Salesforce registry data is stored. So the registry information in your account related to your reporting activities is stored in Canada. Salesforce does, though, have emergency backup storage in other countries. So if there's an issue with the databases here, we would rely on Salesforce to use to use backup storage in other countries. So I did want to make that clear. We are relying on Salesforce as our kind of cloud service operator, and all of our registry portals are built on the Salesforce system.
Thank you for clarifying, Noah, and thank you everyone for attending this consultation webinar. Goodbye.